Minnesota has been one of the whitest states in the country, 4.4 million of its 5.2 million residents. But that is rapidly changing due to increasing diversity among the younger generation. In fact, 87% of the population growth last year came from people who are African American, Asian, American Indian, or Hispanic. Joining me in the studio is co-chair of the Subcommittee on Equity, Senator Jeff Hayden of Minneapolis. Welcome, Senator.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Our state's future growth will be fueled by people of color, and yet those populations historically experience lower outcomes in education, healthcare, and income. What policies might be able to address some of these discrepancies? Well,
I think that we have been studying that for a while, and I'm really glad to say this year we took a forward step with this Committee on Equity. We were able to secure over $70 million, $35 million up front, $17 million every year thereafter, to really target this issue of income inequality in these communities that have to deal with anything from education, job training, as well as entrepreneurship and some other support mechanisms that help that. I also serve on the Health and Human Service Committees, and we're doing an awful lot of work on healthcare disparities, ensuring that people have access to healthcare, that they're compliant, and that we're looking at the social determinants of health, which also really, I think, we're thinking about in terms of wellness, the communities that they live in. And in education, I don't serve on the Education Committee, but there's been a lot of talk on what do we need to do from early childhood education to making sure that kids are ready for kindergarten, and then giving them the supports that they need, and then ensuring that they have a great post-secondary opportunity, via that be college, vocational schools, or even just certificate job training. So I think the legislature has been focused on that issue, and its commitment to that has really been demonstrated on creating the Subcommittee on Equity.
So the governor had originally asked for $100 million, and all parties agreed on $35 million. Where does that money go?
Yeah, and I guess I would say that $35 million up front, but $17 million thereafter.
Right.
So we think
ongoing.
that it's about $70 million, which could continue in the out biennium. Okay. So we think we're a little closer to the $100 million, especially if you take the money that was put in education and a couple of other places, agriculture. So we think we're very close to the $100 million. Okay. The money that we are really most focused on is really job training, is really entrepreneurship opportunities. We always hear that small business is the backbone, right, of our economy in the United States. Well, we believe that people of color, especially the immigrant populations, have a great opportunity to create small businesses in their community. Though we're losing population in outstate Minnesota, but where we're gaining is in the immigrant community. So we have also focused on the opportunity to have those job training opportunities when people are leaving. One of the former demographers said that Minnesota is getting browner and grayer, right? And so the opportunities to really get those folks to kind of come in and backfill for the opportunities and the jobs that they had before, as well as create entrepreneur and small business all throughout the state. We think it's a great opportunity. And so the legislature has been laser-like focused on targeting those that haven't been doing well. And we know that through a lot of the data and the documentation, we know who those folks are. So we're really, really focused on creating opportunities, along with the private sector, the philanthropic community, and local government, to really leverage all of those opportunities to really uplift this population, which is good for Minnesota.
So can you just be a little bit more specific about who gets the money?
Yeah, well, we were able to secure, I think, about 11 direct appropriations to organizations, for instance, like the Neighborhood Development Center, which really trains entrepreneurs. MEDA, which takes entrepreneurs that already have small businesses and helps them grow. Organizations like the YWCA in Minneapolis, that's helping to train people to become early childhood development specialists, or the YWCA in St. Paul, which is really focused on giving people a commercial driver's license, which means that they could go work for Metro Transit, they could be over-the-road truck drivers, they could become mechanics, places like Twin Cities Rise that has a partnership with Metro Transit, so people could become, for instance, technicians on the light rail line, or they could be operators. So there, and I shouldn't have named names because there's a bunch of folks that we're doing. We also have a competitive bidding process that allows organizations that didn't get a direct appropriation to work with DEED and to come up with proposals that we have vetted that we think are going to help folks, and we to then move forward. And the last thing is we have a capacity building. So for people in organizations that have great ideas and just need us to help them flesh that out, we have some capacity building money for them as well.
So one of the statistics that's been in the news lately is that there have currently been 5 workers for every 1 elderly person. And we're very quickly approaching 4 workers per elderly person. And so when you consider that there's going to be fewer workers and more elderly people, there's some concerns for enough tax revenue, especially considering people of color have traditionally made lower incomes. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think number one, we have to acknowledge that there is some implicit bias that happens in the hiring process. There is some implicit bias that happens in terms of what people are paid. I think women have shown that. We've done the Women's Economic Security Act that really showed that women didn't make the same amount as their male counterparts. I think the same statistics would be true of people of color. So we do have to look inwardly and think about who we're hiring, for what job, and what are we paying. And that really starts to deal with the income inequality. We also have to think about our elderly population as someone that can contribute. So my mother, my mother-in-law, and others have now retired, but they're thinking about it, and they're working kind of smaller part-time jobs or opportunities. So I think that we shouldn't think about elderly folks as this group that then is just going to go offline and then never work again. I think that there's unique opportunities for them to work in the way that they want, be mentors, help the younger workers who are coming through to kind of develop the skill sets that they need. And we know that technology will help us, that maybe we don't need as many workers, but we will use technology that will be smarter. But there will be some work that just needs to be done in the same way. And so I think that when we look at our trends and our population trends, I don't want to turn this into an immigration conversation, but that's why it's important, because we are going to continue to need those workers, the ones that are here today, and then certify those that are here that are working and get them on some path that they can become citizens or at least have the opportunity to work. And I think once we add those to the population, to the working population, that then I think we'll be okay. But we do have to address this issue of inherent biases in our system that often we as Minnesotans just really don't like to do.
Very, very true words. Thank you, Senator Hayden. That's all the time we have today, but thank you for coming.
I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.